When I was 7 years old, I believed the world was a magical place. It was the early 2000s, a time when life felt simpler, especially in the small town I grew up in. My days revolved around school, cartoons, and my grandmother, who was my best friend. She lived just a few streets away and often picked me up after school. My parents were busy with work, so she was the one who filled my days with stories, games, and unconditional love. One summer evening, she decided we should visit her sister, Aunt Clara, who lived in the countryside about 2 hours away. It wasn't unusual for us to take spontaneous trips like this. Grandma always said that adventures were the spice of life, even if they were as simple as visiting family. We packed a small bag with some clothes and snacks and set off in her old, reliable station wagon. The sun was just beginning to set, casting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Grandma hummed her favorite tune as we drove, and I felt a sense of excitement. I had always loved these little trips, the kind that broke the monotony of everyday life. As the cityscape melted into rolling fields and dense forests, Grandma began telling one of her stories. This one was about a mysterious woman who lived in the woods and helped travelers who were lost. She described her as kind but secretive, always appearing when people needed her most and disappearing without a trace. I hung on to every word, imagining what it would be like to meet someone so enigmatic. The road ahead grew darker as the sun dipped below the horizon. The trees on either side of us seemed taller, their branches forming eerie silhouettes against the fading light. Grandma turned on the headlights, and the beams cut through the darkness, illuminating the narrow road. "We're almost there," she said, her voice cheerful but tinged with a hint of unease. "Aunt Clara's house is just past the old bridge." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. That's when I noticed something strange. A figure was standing at the edge of the road, just beyond the reach of the headlights. It was a woman, dressed in a long dark coat, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. She didn't move as we approached, and for a moment, I thought she was a statue. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Grandma glanced at me, then back at the road. "See what, sweetie?" I pointed toward where the woman had been, but she was gone. There was a lady standing there. Grandma's expression softened. "It's probably just your imagination. These woods can play tricks on you, especially at night." I wanted to believe her, but something about the woman had felt too real. I decided to stay quiet and keep my eyes on the road, just in case she appeared again. The bridge came into view, its old wooden planks creaking under the weight of the car as we crossed. On the other side, Aunt Clara's house stood like a beacon, its porch light glowing warmly in the distance. Relief washed over me as we pulled into the driveway. Aunt Clara came out to greet us, her smile as wide as the horizon. "You made it!" she exclaimed, wrapping Grandma in a tight hug before turning to me. "And look at you, getting so big!" We spent the evening catching up, laughing over stories and enjoying a delicious homemade dinner. By the time I climbed into bed, my earlier unease had faded. Aunt Clara had prepared a cozy guest room for me, complete with soft blankets and a little lamp shaped like a star. I drifted off to sleep, but my dreams were anything but peaceful. I kept seeing the woman from the road, her dark coat billowing in the wind, her hat casting a shadow over her face. She stood silently, watching me, her presence heavy and unrelenting. When I woke in the middle of the night, the room felt colder than it should have. The star-shaped lamp flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. I sat up, my heart pounding. A faint sound reached my ears, like the creak of floorboards. I held my breath, straining to listen. The sound grew louder, closer. It was coming from the hallway. "Grandma?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. I slid out of bed, my bare feet touching the cold wooden floor. I opened the door a crack and peered into the hallway. It was empty, but the sound persisted, moving toward the front of the house. Summoning all my courage, I stepped into the hallway and followed the noise. It led me to the living room, where the porch light cast a faint glow through the windows. Standing in front of the door was the woman from the road. Her back was to me, but I knew it was her. The long coat, the wide-brimmed hat, there was no mistaking it. She turned slowly, and for the first time, I saw her face, or rather, the absence of one. Where her features should have been, there was only darkness, an endless void that seemed to pull at my very soul. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot as she reached out a gloved hand. Just as her fingers were about to touch me, the room was flooded with light. Grandma and Aunt Clara burst in, their faces etched with panic. The woman vanished, leaving only the faint scent of damp earth in her wake. "What happened?" Grandma demanded, pulling me into her arms. Through tears, I told them everything. Aunt Clara's face grew pale, and she exchanged a worried glance with Grandma. "She's been seen before," Aunt Clara said quietly. "Always near the bridge. They say she's looking for something or someone." We didn't stay the night. Grandma packed our things, and we left before dawn. The drive home was silent, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken fears. As we crossed the bridge, I couldn't help but look back. The woman was there, standing in the middle of the road, watching us leave. Years later, I still think about that night. Who was she? What did she want? I'll never know. But one thing is certain: some stories aren't just tales. Sometimes, the shadows hold truths we're not meant to uncover.